Welcome to the Airbnb Roadmap, the podcast designed to navigate you through the entire journey of short-term rental success. Whether you're just starting out or ready to take your hosting game to the next level. My husband and I became super hosts within just months of launching our first Airbnb and have proudly kept that title ever since. With over 350 reviews and an overall 4.95 star rating, we picked up a hack or two I'm excited to share with you. In each episode, I break down the strategies, insights, and industry secrets that set profitable short-term rentals apart. From choosing the right property, understanding local regulations, and obtaining your listing to go beyond just the basics. I'm here to share everything you need to succeed. So if you're ready to map out your path to Airbnb success and unlock the full potential of short-term rentals, join me on the Airbnb Roadmap. Your journey starts here. Hey, I'm Brittany Wenninger with Porch Realty, powered by Real Broker LLC, and life update. There honestly is not any life update. Baby Melanie is now in daycare. I thought that my days were going to be way more cool, calm, collected. I stand corrected. My days are actually more busy than they were when I was taking care of her, which is wild. I think I just did it to myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all this time. And then boom, 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 I just fill up my plate once again. As for the Airbnb that we have under contract, our designer is doing her thing. She's designing and all that good jazz. And then we are making our way to the closing table. It is kind of weird. This one, we have a partner. And I'm just used to whenever we purchase a property, like obviously lending's involved. We have to give them all these documents and all that stuff. And with this partnership, he is actually, they are carrying the loan. So I'm not doing anything. I'm not like providing any financial documentation or anything like that. So I'm just kind of like sitting back and just waiting for closing. But if you listen to the last episode, you know that is not a good thing because you need to use this time to prep for your new Airbnb. So I have a startup Amazon cart, and pretty much once it's go time, I'm actually going to have everything be shipped to the property while I'm there. So all the boxes are just directly shipped to the property, and then I don't have to deal with like transportation. So that is in the works. Designing is in the works. And once the designer picks out all the furniture, we're just going to push the good old pay now button. My heart's going to sink a little bit. My stomach is my heart can't sink. My stomach can sink. And a little dagger to my wallet will happen at that time because if you know, furnishing a whole property is not the cheapest, and I hate pushing that pay now button because that is thousands and thousands of dollars that will now be gone. Poof, gone into the air, which is so sad, but obviously 100% necessary if you want to make a property into an Airbnb. You kind of need furniture, but yeah, writing that big old check is not fun, but it is what it is, and that is the cost of doing business. So anywho, that is not what today's episode is all about. Today's episode is all about the rules and regulations. We did do a similar episode way back when about rules and regulations, but I just feel like that we need to do it one more time. Honestly, I'll probably do it again in a year, but that's how important rules and regulations are for Airbnbs. And there are a lot of shenanigans out there that is changing for the good and for the bad. But let's just kind of dive into it. And I want to also mention that this is everything for the state of Wisconsin. So, if you are in Utah, I don't know why I just picked Utah, that state might be completely different than the state of Wisconsin. I know someone was investing in a whole different state. She was telling me their rules and regulations because I guess I made her really nervous, which I'm glad. But their state has nothing. Their counties have nothing. The townships have nothing. And she's like, what? You just kind of scared me so much. And I was like, well, you just have a rare state. And honestly, you have a state that just does not give a shit. State of Wisconsin, they give a shit. So let's just start from the top, and we will, on our agenda, we will be talking about the state, the county, and then the township rules and kind of what to expect. And some townships are more strict than others. So these are just kind of some rules and regulations I have seen in the past. And hopefully it will prep you to navigate your township's rules and regulations. Let's just start from the top. Wisconsin has a statewide guideline that applies to all short-term rentals, and that is called the Tourist Rooming House License. For 4 freaking years, I have been saying roaming tourist license. Roaming, not rooming, roaming, and then tourist as the second word, not the first word. It took me 4 years to realize it's the Tourist Rooming House License. Come on, Britt. But that is what it is. So if you are renting out a property for fewer than 29 consecutive days, you will fall underneath this category. This license is issued through the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, commonly known as DATCP. DATCP, that is a lot. But anywho, to stay compliant, you need to pretty much apply for the license and renew it every year and schedule the inspection. I will just tell you straight up that this inspection is really easy. And I really shouldn't say that over like a podcast, because like if yours is really hard, you're going to be like, Britt, like you said it was easy. But I have done this 3 times now, and all 3 times has been honestly kind of a joke, but we also have been very prepared. So right when your property is furnished, ready to go, it's clean. The cleaner doesn't have to go through it yet, but just make sure it's like honestly really clean and guest ready. That's how I describe it. It's guest ready. But they pretty much look for the fire extinguishers and the smoke detectors and the CO detectors. And if there is a private well, they also need to know how the water is, if it has a lot of bacteria, nitrates, and all that good jazz. In the state, though, they also look for other very odd items. And this includes non-slip mats in showers, unscented bleach underneath the sink. And the unscented bleach, that one cracks me up because we totally forgot that for the 3rd inspection. And right before inspection happened, I ran to Walgreens, could not find unscented bleach anywhere. And then he runs to Walmart and still could not find it. And then he called me, he's like, I am an idiot. I was like, oh boy, what's going on? He's like, every single bleach is unscented. That's the whole purpose, is unscented bleach. I've been looking at bottles and trying to find the word unscented everywhere. And I literally could have just gone to Walgreens and got their bleach. All their bleach is unscented. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't tell you that, but yes, all bleach is unscented. So don't look for a bottle that says unscented, because that's not a thing. Anywho, you want to make sure that is underneath the sink. You have non-slip mats in the shower, smoke detectors where they need to be placed, and all that good jazz. Pretty much during this inspection, they are trying to make sure that your Airbnb is safe for guests. They want to make sure that obviously the guest is, not checking into a crap hole of a place. Just saying. So once you get your tourist rooming house license, then you are pretty much all good to go. But you do need to get that license no matter what. Whenever I have a client that, puts their Airbnb up online, I always reach out to them and I say, did you get your license? And if they say no, I say, get that offline right now. I'm kind of a bitch about it. Like, you will literally get kicked out if you don't have the proper license. So that's why this is super important. But that's just the state. The state, super easy. It's the inspection. So for the county level, and we're just kind of going to go through it, there are certain rules and regulations for this that, are easy. Sometimes they're very complicated. For the very first property of ours, the county level is, well, honestly, there was nothing. They were just like, hey, just get your tourist rooming license. I still like struggle like with saying it that way, but just get the state level license and you're good to go. Well, our second property, not that easy. We had to get a conditional use permit, and that was a big headache. But honestly, whenever it's a bigger headache, that means that there's not that many short-term rentals because people don't want to go through it and less competition. So I didn't mind jumping through all these hoops. And this is for Columbia County, that pretty much conditional use permit had to fill out all the applications and then give them like all the documentation. So we had to give them the blueprint, not like an actual blueprint, but like just kind of like a layout of the house, where all the windows are, where the doors are. That way, if there was a fire, the fire department can pull it up and they know exactly like the layout of the house. And then also we needed a bird's eye view of the lot for the lot lines, and then also a bird's eye view for the parking situation. So those were the three main ones, plus the application. And of course, like everyone, they wanted money, so we had to send in the money as well. Well, that's all fine and dandy. But the extra layer for said county was that there was going to be a letter sent to all of the neighbors within like a certain radius saying this house wants to apply for the tourist rooming housing license. If you have any objections or anything to say about this, you need to go to the hearing. So we had to go to the very first hearing. Obviously, we had to be present. And the very first hearing was the zoning department for that township. I will admit, it was really rough because we had someone on the board that I think that she was just having a really bad day, because my one friend went through the exact same process with the county and the township. And she said that like that person was super nice to her. So I think we just kind of caught her on a bad day. But this cabin of ours is in the woods, and we didn't have the fire sign. If you don't know what fire sign is, it's literally like the shiny red or green sign in front of a house. So like the fire department like knows what house is what. If they can't find like the numbers on the sign, it makes it easy for them to like identify the house. Anyways, our fire sign was pretty much like not close to the cabin at all. So she's like, if there's a fire, how's the fire department going to know which cabin it is? And I'm like, all right, like we can get another fire sign installed right in front of the cabin. That's not a big deal. And she kind of made us think about that, but then, all things were good. And she's like, fine, if you install that sign, we're good. And I was like, oh, easy. So that was like her biggest thing. And then also we did have some neighbors send in some letters, quote unquote, objecting the Airbnb. And these letters were pretty comical. One of them was a guy that actually lives behind us, and he has acres and acres of land, and there's a whole tree line with like a trench. So like, could you even get on his property? No. But he wrote saying, I don't want people on my property. That's literally all he wrote in this email. And I'm like, you know what, like, here's a bird's eye view. This is where his land is. This is, the line of trees and how thick it is. People are not going to go on his property. And they're like, yeah, that makes sense. This guy's just kind of like protective. I was like, I totally get it. But again, that's not going to happen. The other person was saying that they don't want the Airbnb because there's going to be trash everywhere. There is a gutter and a refrigerator on the side of the road already. No one has picked it up. They, it's like destroying their crops. I don't know how that's destroying their crops. It's not, but they were just complaining. And I just told them straight up, I was like, hey, we have not rented the house to anyone yet, because obviously we're trying to get the application and the license and permits and all that stuff. That's not us. And that's also literally half a mile down the street. So these people are literally just complaining just to complain and wanted you guys to hear it. And they're like, oh, that's not even you guys? I'm like, no, I don't even know whose refrigerator that is. And they're like, oh, okay, like that's dismissed too. So did we get some people to respond to that letter that they got about us applying for the application? Yes. Did it even pertain to us? No. These are pretty much just people that wanted to just complain. So that was very hectic. My husband was shaking. I was shaking, but when it comes to like hearings and all that stuff, I am the person. So I had to put on my big girl panties and just suck it up and just like get through it. But at the end of the day, everyone voted yes, that they will, agree to have the property be an Airbnb. And then I realized that that was not the only hearing. Then it was the city board hearing. And after the first one of like people actually like, writing a letter, I was kind of shitting my pants, to be honest, because I'm like, oh my God, like, here we go again. But luckily, the city board hearing, that was just like super easy. They're like, is everyone good with this? And everyone's like, yeah, sure, like, who cares? So that was the easy peasy one. And then, I know I keep on saying and then because it just was ongoing. The next hearing was the county level. So we had to go to Columbia County and go to like their city hall, and that one was like super easy. We were just kind of like on the docket. They mentioned our name. No one, argued about it. Everyone was just like, yep, sure, whatever. And then that one passed. But I did feel really bad. We were not the only people trying to get an Airbnb during that hearing. There was another guy that was trying to get his permits, and he really messed up. Like, so bad. He was operating without permits. He got caught, and they said, hey, you have to go through the process. You have to get your permits the right way. Well, one of his neighbors actually showed up to the county, the county hearing, and said that she doesn't want that to happen. She doesn't want her neighbor to have an Airbnb. Not because the guests going in and out, like, she didn't mind that, but he had guns and was, it's out in the country. So he had guns and he was like shooting at targets and all that stuff. And she's like, I have children, like, that's freaking them out. It's also a huge safety thing. So the guy was like, this is my property. I had the right to do that. Like, obviously my guests are not going to have guns. And she's like, well, if you're going to advertise it as an Airbnb, you shouldn't be doing it yourself, which I kind of agree to a point. Like, it's his property. He can do what he wants. But people, like his neighbors that don't know him, don't realize that that's actually the owner and not like a guest, especially with small kids running around. Like, not cool, because it sounded like his property's on like an open cornfield. So, not that many trees to stop a bullet. But yeah, so in my head, I was like, dude, this guy's screwed. Like, one, operating without permits, two, firearms on the property. And yeah, he's done. But the county was like, you know what? This is strike one. Don't do that again. We'll give you the permits, even though, you're operating without permits. Like, that's not cool. But they still gave him the go because, drumroll please, the county gets money. And that's what it is at the end of the day. The township gets money and the county gets money. So most of the time they will approve you because they get their money. So that is that. So that's the county level. Again, this is some counties. Not all counties are going to go through this extreme. I literally explained the most extreme situation for a conditional use permit. And our third property did not need any of that. Our third property we need to do a rental application. We sent in $5, and that was pretty much them trying to collect our contact info to make sure that, like, everything's all good. So yeah, I literally just explained the worst of the worst when it comes to conditional use permits and counties. Now, for the township rules and regulations, this is when it gets real sticky because all townships are completely different. And some townships don't require any rules and regulations. Some of them require a lot, and they make it very challenging. Now, am I thankful for having townships that have rules and regulations? Truthfully, I am. Because just kind of like what happened to New York, there was no rules, no regulations for short-term rentals. It got way oversaturated. The city of New York was like, we need to shut this down because, one, we need to provide more housing for just normal people, and also this is kind of getting ridiculous with hotels, and they banned short-term rentals, and all these people are like stuck trying to sell their property now. Well, in the state of Wisconsin, a lot of the townships already have rules and regulations in place, so we already kind of like know what to expect. So I personally like it when townships have some type of guidelines and you're not like caught with your pants down and being like, oh shoot, like you're going to change all this on us and we're not grandfathered in, like WTF. So here are some rules and regulations on the township level. This is when it gets pretty gnarly. So the biggest one is minimum night stays. Now, some towns, there is a 5-night minimum, 3-night minimum, 7-night minimum, and then some of them are 1-night minimums. I personally like to invest in properties that are 1-night minimums because when you get to the 5 or the 7-night minimums, it's hard to keep your property booked for that long because a lot of people just like to vacation for 2 or 3 nights. Now, I have seen, and I would not suggest this, but I have seen people pretty much purchase properties in these townships that have like a 7-night minimum, and then they run it as a 1-night minimum. On Airbnb, you can see that. So the township can see what you're doing. It's up to you if you want to do that. I personally would not, but you would probably get a big fine if you're caught. But again, people do it. And again, I would not suggest that. But anyway, so that's a night minimum. Another one is you need to have a resident agent nearby, so within 20 minutes or 20 miles. What a resident agent is, it's pretty much someone that the fire department can call and they can act on your behalf. So like if there's a fire, they will call the resident agent because they know that that person is nearby, and they would be pretty much the decision maker in that situation. Obviously, you would get a call as well saying like, hey, like your cabin's on fire. But this person will be like the point of contact for any like emergency responses. This one used to freak Clay and I out because we're like, oh my gosh, we don't know anyone in the area. We can't invest in that area. But what we have found is that the cleaners don't mind being that point of contact. They already know the property the best. So we always have the cleaner as the point of contact. Now, so that's minimum night stays, resident agent, and then there's rules that like you can't be within a certain distance of another Airbnb, or you have to own the property for at least 2 years before you can make it into a rental. So there are some like crazy rules and regulations out there that, make it a little bit more challenging for you to actually like invest in that township. Now, the biggest one that I have seen, and this one's pretty wild, I think owning the property for 2 years before you can rent it, that's a shitty one as well. But there's another one that you need to, minimum of 7-night stays, maximum of 180 days that you can rent it out, so you can't rent it out all year. Another one is you have to be owner-occupied. That's a really crappy one. But there's one that I just think is really wild, and I think that this is kind of BS at the township it does this, but you have to own 3 properties in order for you to self-manage. If you do not own 3 properties in that township, then you have to use their property manager, which I think is wild because now they're collecting a certain percentage more, like for you to have that property in the township. So they're collecting, let's say, 20%, and that money is probably going to, some of it's probably going to the management company, but some of it also is probably going to the township. Do I know that for a fact? No, this is just an assumption. But I think that is a BS one because it's like, all right, I can't just own 1 property. I have to own 3 for me to self-manage. Like, come on, man. Anywho, so townships get pretty hairy. And again, there's some townships that have no rules and regulations. If that's the case, awesome. Hopefully you are grandfathered in if, that county does make some rules and regulations in that township. I know a lot of places that do get more strict, though, like your property is more likely going to be grandfathered in, but you should do your own research and call the townships and verify that information. And honestly, you need to verify everything. That's the one thing I have for all of my clients is that Whenever we see a property in a township, I say, hey, you need to call the township and the county and figure out the rules and regulations. I generally know all of them in the state of Wisconsin, but you need to do your own research so you hear it from them and I'm just not playing messenger. Also, a lot of my research, sometimes it was done 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and, things change. So always call the townships yourself and figure out what the rules and regulations are. All right. So we did the state, the county, the townships, and now it's the good old HOAs. All I have to say with that is if the house is in the HOA, do not do it. Do not get into that mumbo jumbo, because if it's an active HOA, they could literally just have like a board meeting and say like all in favor of saying no HOAs in this neighborhood, say aye. Everyone obviously is probably going to say aye, because why not? And then all of a sudden you're screwed and you're not allowed to have a Airbnb in that neighborhood. So that's literally all it takes. So if there's an active HOA that you're paying money into, I highly suggest not purchasing in that area. Now, you can, but that risk is going to fall on you, and that's no fun. So, that was a lot. That was a lot of me talking, which is funny because in the beginning of this episode, I was like, I'm just going to keep it around 15 minutes, keep it light, short, whatever. And here we are, 30 minutes in. Anywho, there are 2 other things that I want to mention when it comes to the rules and regulations in the state of Wisconsin. These don't really fall under minimum night stays or anything like that. So that's why I'm keeping this completely separate. One of them is if you are calling a small town and you say short-term rentals, sometimes they're not going to know what that is. So just say Airbnb. And if it's a small town, I suggest asking the question, will this town be taken over by another larger town in the future? For example, and we just ran into this, so this is why I'm mentioning it, that there's a very small, unincorporated town outside of Masson, and the guy's super nice, told my client that in November of 2026, I believe, they will be under the jurisdiction of the city of Masson. So that means that the city of Masson will actually, have all the rules and regulations for this township. And that township's going to be no more. It's going to be ruled under city of Masson. So now we are actively, and this is literally in the works right now, trying to figure out, okay, if she purchases the property, makes it into an Airbnb, and it's underneath, city number 1, when city number 2 takes over in November 2026, will she be grandfathered in? So that's what we are figuring out right now. A lot of the properties in the state of Wisconsin are grandfathered in, but you never know. You never know. So hopefully we can get that in writing that she will be grandfathered in, and then she gets that property, she makes hella money, and life is good. So that's one. The second thing I want to mention is the amount of people that you can have in Airbnb. People think that just because you have a 4-bed, 2 or 3 bath property, you can have as many people as you want in your Airbnb. Well, that is a huge question to ask your township of how many people can I legally fit in this Airbnb. Some townships will go by the size of the septic. Some of it will go by the number of beds or number of baths or the square footage. So every single township/county does it completely different. So you need to ask them, hey, how many people can I legally fit into the Airbnb? Because if it's a large home and you can only fit 6 people, that obviously will affect your numbers and how much you should charge for a nightly rate. Now, if you have a small property and you can fit 20 people in, then it's do I really want to fit 20 people into said property, or should I max it out at 8 people? So that's a huge question that you need to ask of how many people can actually fit in there, and then that will affect your numbers in the future. But overall, do not, please do not put your your property on Airbnb without getting the proper permits and license, because I know that if you get caught, and they are very strict, they can literally say you are no longer able to have an Airbnb in this township, and then you are very SOL, and then you probably will honestly want to sell your property. So yes, do not do that. Make sure to get all your permits in place, and you will be rocking and rolling. That is the riskiest thing for like purchasing a property, is because you can't get your permits and license until you own the property and until you furnish it and all that stuff. So that's the biggest risk to buying a short-term rental, is this part. I have done it 3 times. Oh, well, I'm going to be doing it 4 times very shortly. And I have gone, well, one of the properties was probably the hardest. Did we get through it? Yes, because at the end of the day, the township loves their money rolling in for them doing nothing. The county loves their money rolling in for not doing anything. And then same with the state. So they get a lot of money from Airbnbs, and that's why they want to keep it going. So yeah, if you have any questions, make sure to reach out to me. You know how to reach me. It's all good. And always, little plug for the course, less than $500, and you learn so much. Literally everything that I teach you in the course, I have learned from courses that I've purchased that were thousands of dollars. But this one's less than $500 because I don't believe in price gouging for education. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I'll hook you up. Also, we are doing a little thing that if you purchase your very first Airbnb through an agent that I connect you with, you will get the course for free. You'll get 100% refund for the course at the closing table. So you need to close on your very first Airbnb through an agent that I connect you with, and then you will get 100% refunded back. And that is my way of saying congratulations, you are now taking the first step in buying your very first short-term rental. So, as always, I will see you in the next episode of the Airbnb Roadmap podcast. Thanks for joining me on the Airbnb Roadmap. If you're loving these episodes and want to keep the conversation going, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone who's ready to dive into the world of short-term rentals. Got a question or topic you would love to hear about? Reach out. This podcast is all about learning and growing together. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, the Airbnb Roadmap Podcast, for more tips, tricks, and behind-the-scene insights. Until next time, here's to turning your short-term rental dreams into thriving realities. I'll see you back here soon.